2024, I preloaded envelopes full of readings for both the month and the full moon throughout the entire year, and I really enjoyed this practice. Let's get into talking about it and what I'm doing differently for 2025. This was a highly requested video because last year I did this envelope instead of doing a monthly reading. Oops, I'm putting them out of order. Instead of doing a month ahead reading every month and getting caught in my head about it, or doing a year ahead reading where like I know what's coming like each month, I did this envelope system. Now this was originally inspired by a video that April over at Tarot and Witchery did. I will find her video and I will link it down below. I think that her initial video was about creating some sort of advent calendar system for yourself to pull a card, or it was about just doing envelope style readings just in general. And she may have mentioned even doing the like every single month. I cannot remember, it's been so long, but I was so inspired and I ended up doing this whole extra practice thing. And I did this all throughout the year. It was incredible. I'm going to talk through and kind of show you what my readings look like and how I engaged with them, what I used, and I'm going to talk about what I'm doing differently next year. I feel like I just said that twice, but like just come along with me for the journey because we're going to also do it in this video. All right, so for 2024, here's what I did. I had two different things that I did depending on whether it was my month reading or my moon reading. So let me go through what I did, what I used, and how it worked. So my month readings, and I did wax seals. I'm not going to be doing this. We'll talk more about that. But I did wax seals, which was super fun. These were the decks that I used. So I used a Lenormand deck. Now, Lenormand deck is really great for your month readings because there are 36 cards in a standard Lenormand deck. And if you divide that by 3, that's 3 cards per month, and you use the entire deck for the year. And I thought it was really, really cool. It worked really, really well. We're going to talk through that. So I have my 3 Lenormand cards. I also used a card. Oh, let me show you the actual things that I used here. So these Lenormand cards are from a deck that I think you can't get anymore, but it's the Clair de Lune Lenormand. This is by Anna Turian. It's beautiful. It's got this kind of moon look to it. And so I had a 3-card reading. This was my January card. It was Mountain, Scythe, and Snake. So I would have my 3-card Lenormand reading. And the purpose for that was to give me a, what am I dealing with this month? Like, what's going on? What's happening? What's the deal? And then I also included a card from the Creative Consciousness Healing Oracle. This is such a beautiful deck and it is so underrated. I don't know if I've talked about it in Mass Market Madness yet. If I haven't, I will because it's incredible. It's a wonderful mass market deck, really good for any kind of trauma healing, and really good, my opinion, okay, as somebody with trauma, really good for that. Really good as just a nurturing sort of self-card draw. But each one of these has such a beautiful, soothing feeling to it. But anyway, my January card was water, and it says experiencing the healing power of water. The reason I pulled this in is because when you get into the guidebook, let me just show you a card. You get a little guided meditation, visualization for every single card. So for water, it says, close your eyes and imagine that you are by the most beautiful body of water you've ever seen. It could be imagined or a place that you know. Find a place by the water and sit beside it. Feel the water with your hand and imagine its cool healing power on your skin. Ask the water, is there anything you want to show me right now? Watch as the water brings something up from the bottom and gently floats it to you on a wave. If you have a specific question for the water, you can ask it now and see what it brings to you. If you need more clarity, kindly ask the water to continue showing you what you are meant to see and know for your highest good until you feel a resolution. Thank the water for being a gentle guide to you. Now, obviously, you don't have to do that, right? But it's such a beautiful little practice, and it was really nice to include this in my month. So with the Lenormand, I get that sort of practical information. What do I need to know? What's going on this month? Which was wild. More on that in a minute. And then this gives me like a soothing little self-care visualization, something really spiritual that sort of takes me into myself. But there's also a journal prompt here. So this says, try journaling with a body of water. Ask it to show you what your body, mind, or spirit needs right now. Allow the messages to flow through you easily and unimpeded like a river. Now for me, the journal prompt and the visualization were kind of a double up. I most often just ended up doing the visualizations, but every once in a while the journal prompt would be good. Now I like that they have both because not everybody in fact, not everybody can visualize, especially with this amount of detail. And so the journal prompt gives you a way to engage with the energy of the card differently. So this is very like cerebral and this is very like visual creative. So depending on what's easier for you, you have 2 different ways to engage with the card, or you can just read what it's about. So in this case, the key concepts are nervous system reset, body healing, inner child needing freedom, cleansing, cleaning, refreshing, and hydrating. So you could just riff on that and pull that in. And then I pulled a card from the Wisdom of the Kaliak Oracle. And this was just so I could engage with some, I guess, sage energy. I wanted some energy from sort of, yeah, sage energy. I don't know how else to describe that. So I had the Crossroads card in January. These all ended up being very on point. More on that in a moment. And then finally, I pulled an oracle card from a tarot card from the Nameless One tarot. Now, the Nameless One is a deck that I really wanted to dive into in 2024, and I really enjoyed my time with this deck. So if you get this deck, it comes like this. This is like a totally luxurious deck, but it's been so wonderful to work with. So what I would do is I only had a single card because I have the book that the deck came with, which is quite a chunky guidebook with lots of stuff in it, including an affirmation, which is really powerful to work with. So for example, here I have the Ace of Cups. And if I go to the Ace of Cups in here, we have branches. Oh, here's cups. Okay. 6, Ace. The affirmation is, I love, honor, and respect myself and my emotions. So you can work with it in here. There's lots of symbology. There's an upright and reverse meaning in the guidebook that comes with it. However, what I really enjoyed doing throughout the month, let me just put this over here, was working, I'm not going to pull it all, well, I guess I will. Okay. So was working with the giant grimoire. Oh my gosh, this was such a treat. It was a bit of a time commitment because this is not a small book, as you can see, but I would go to my Ace of Cups. I mean, just look at how beautiful. But for each of these, you get all the information. So the upright, reversed, the affirmation, all the literal associations, correspondences for the card over on the side, including this bit here that says, seek eternal youth and your cup will drain. From such pointless wishes we must refrain. Seek eternal joy and your cup runneth over. More attainable still than the four-leaved clover, which is a powerful little thing you can use as like a spell or again, like an affirmation. And then if you turn the page in this big grimoire, you get a deep dive into the symbology of what is on the card itself. So here for our Ace of Cups, we have a full page, like a massive full page on the symbology of the cup itself. The lotus, the red liquid. If I turn the page, I also get information on the colors. So here it is red, blue, and pink, and those associations. And then a really cool bit at the end. So here it says, whom does our grail serve? You cannot pour from an empty cup. And there's more and more. So there's lots and lots of detail for every single card in this giant grimoire. And I am obsessed with this. This was so much fun to get a single card and to just sit down and work with this big grimoire. Now, if I was working with, and you'll see this in other things I have done, if I was working with a deck I knew better, I probably would have more than one tarot card in my monthly spread. But because I was deep diving into a single card like this, I kept it to just one tarot card in each of my monthly envelopes. So this is what my monthly envelope looked like. I cannot tell you enough how incredible of an experience it was throughout the year to pull cards, open these envelopes, and I would typically wait till about halfway through the month. The reason I did that is because I didn't want to work with this in a predictive way. I wanted to work with this in a help support me in my month way, and I was concerned that if I pulled it right before the month started or like in the middle of the month, or sorry, in the beginning of the month, that I would see it more as a prediction, and then it would kind of take my power away a little bit, which is what was the whole purpose for these envelopes in the first place. I didn't want them to be, I wanted to avoid the thing where you do like a year ahead and you know what each month is. And then you're like, oh my God, my tower month is in July. My tower month is July. And like you think about it like all the first 6 months of the year. And then when your tower month comes, it turns out maybe that you decide to dissolve a business that has been just sapping your energy. It turns out to be a really positive thing, but you've been worrying about it for 5 months. I didn't want that. So I wanted to engage with this in a, let me have this sort of meet me where I am. And ironically, January was a really rough month for me. And this ended up being so on point. And it's funny how I pull these cards now and I can remember. In fact, I unpacked a couple months in a row. I was going to do it every month and it got away from me. But I did do a couple of these where I really broke them down and got really shared with my Unicorn fam members how each one had worked out for me. I did that for at least a couple months. Maybe more. I can't remember. But this was, I think, one of the months that I unpacked with my members, and it was just really potent. January was a huge transitional month for me. There's a lot of really big things that came up. There was a lot of difficult things that came up. I was really sick. I was dealing with burnout. There's a whole bunch of things kind of coalesced all at once. It was a lot. And having this Ace of Cups here and this water card to sort of bring me to myself, and also cards that acknowledged that I was at a turning point and needed to make some difficult decisions, cards that acknowledged the trouble I was dealing with, the obstacles I was dealing with my illness and with other stuff that was was going on. This was so powerful and made me feel so seen. And so it really kicked off the year really beautifully. So I'm going to start making some piles here real quick so that I can empty my envelopes as I go here. I'll get into the moons in a second. So let's just look at another one here. And what I would do is put them back in my envelope in order so I could revisit them. So I was careful to put my Lenormand cards in order so that the top card would be the left card, then the middle, and then the right. So my February, I had Moon Belly. Oh my gosh, I can't remember. I think this is the World. Yeah, that's the World. And then Shapes the Land here. So here we had House, Coffin, Ring. Again, all of these turned out to be very on point. And I'm just going to take the rest of these out of their envelopes real quick, and then I'll come back and talk about my full moons. I'm taking these all out of order. Here's a really beautiful example. So I'm taking these out of their envelopes kind of out of order, but I just wanted to show you really quick. So this was May. May was a really tough month for me. So actually May saw me finishing my Kickstarter, but I ran into some big hiccups in that month. I was really struggling with the printer I was working with for Unicorn's Journey Tarot. I had some things come up that just made things very stressful. And here I saw that reflected in the Tower card, which was my card of the month. Both Simplify and Setting Sun ended up having very powerful messages for me. And the Rider, Tower, and Garden reminded me that my strength lies in my community and that I need to be not afraid to create some boundaries for myself and to really lean into my support network for navigating issues. And I ended up doing a lot of that in May. It ended up being really powerful. Okay, I'm going to move these to the side. I keep trying to decide what I'm going to share and when, but I'm just like looking at October's cards and I thought I would share those. So let me just put this over to the side and we'll do our moon ones next. So October was the month that Peggy and I launched Sassy Dragons. So there was a lot of stress just before Sassy Dragons Kickstarter launched. There was a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes. There was a lot of definitely some burdensome feeling. There was a lot of pressure and a lot of stuff going on internally, not necessarily stuff that needed to be there, but it was being felt anyway. So Cross, Heart, and Bouquet really gave the vibe of the month. It was we started out with this burdensome feeling and then just got all up in our feels and just how good it felt. And then we're just filled, bursting with gratitude for how launch day went. It just ended up being incredible. Then we had Belonging that says Healing and Community. This is really powerful for me because October for me was very much a full circle moment in a lot of ways. And without getting super personal, what I can tell you is this: having the community show up for my wife specifically the way that they did for Sassy Dragons is an unforgettable experience and something I was so grateful for. And that it healed something in me that I don't think I knew needed healing until it happened. And it was just, I know it meant a lot to her, but being on the outside and watching her have that experience, not outside, I mean, I was a part of it too, but it's hard to describe. Being an observer in that situation and seeing how it unfolded, it again was so powerful and so healing. And then Home came through, and this had a lot of meaning for me with just the community here, TarotTube community, our community we've built around ourselves being home. And then the Central Tarot card was actually the Justice card. And this was really powerful again, because to me, I see this as sort of the balancing of scales. And it felt like that in October. Again, without getting super personal, I can't tell you how meaningful this reading ended up being. And I felt like this with every monthly reading that happened. And I think I interrupted myself before, but what I was going to say is that one of the thing that was so powerful about this practice for me was it sort of reawakened a bit of my belief in, not that I've ever truly lost it, but it reawakened my belief in the magic of tarot and divination and how it works and how it brings us home to ourselves and helps us feel seen and validated and have these powerful experiences. Because I put these cards in these envelopes in November, December of last year, and then opened them throughout the year this year. So to have each set of cards come out and echo my experience and walk me through my experience in such an on point, super relatable way was very, very powerful. It was oh my gosh, this couldn't be more spot on. And it felt to me, it almost felt like getting a reading from somebody else every single month. It had that vibe of feeling like it was outside of myself, because those cards had been concentrated on and drawn at a different time, but they were the cards that I needed. It's I got the cards I needed when I needed them by doing this practice. Okay, so I forgot my Wisdom and the Caveat cards live in this bag. So I'm just putting them back together. Really enjoyed working with this deck. It just brought that kind of crone, kind of grandma-y sort of spiritual energy into each month. Really enjoyed that. The Claire de Lune was wonderful to pull each month. And my creative consciousness healing was also really wonderful, but I'm excited to have these be usable decks for me again throughout the year. I've definitely missed being able to just reach for them anytime, especially this one. I feel like this is one that I would have reached for more throughout the year. That is the one thing about this practice. You are sort of committing to giving up your regular reaching for use of a deck during the year that you do this practice. But I have enough decks that for me that is not a hardship. So those were the things that I pulled in for my months. Let's talk about the moons and how that went. So for the moons, I did something a little bit different. So I looked up the dates of all the full moons and I put them on the envelope. And then I also put the name of the moon on the envelope. It was relevant for the cards that I was using. I'll show you that in just a second. So let's look at December, since this just passed. I put it for December 15th. So when you get into here, these are the cards that I did. So I pulled a card from this deck. This is the Witching Hour Oracle by Cherie Gerhardt, and it actually has a card for specific moons. So instead of shuffling and drawing, I actually pulled the moon that was associated with the December full moon. So in this case, it's the cold moon, and the keyword here is endure. Endure. This is so on point because, of course, as you know, or as you may not, well, you could probably hear it in my voice, I've been ill for most of December so far. So endure really feels on point, but there would be a guidebook entry and you could go to card 38 where it talks about the cold moon, endure, and it says the full cold moon is a time to endure life's difficulties. And then it says your loved one may be suffering something painful, confusing, or unpleasant. You must endure and push yourself through this moment in life. You should know you are strong, and though it may be incredibly hard in the moment, you will move past this to better times. If it is a friend who is suffering, maybe you should consider being like the owl on this card and let them know they are not alone in these hard times. So again, very on point. You can hopefully see what I mean about my experience with these all freaking year. It's been incredible. And then for my second card, I pulled these from the Goddess on Earth Oracle. I have a video about this deck. It is absolutely beautiful. I also have a big hardbound book, which was fun to dip into occasionally. So this is card number 11. And this felt perfect for a full moon pull for me. So card number 11. So this is Mami Wata. And so the perspective, we've got action. Below the Earth's ocean surface are dark, mysterious caverns. This card is an invitation to dive into those murky recesses and explore each curve and bump. It is easier to stay above water where the sun bathes all in light and warmth, but be brave. Balance your light and dark within, so your inner wisdom may be revealed. The underwater current is guiding you to where you need to be. Follow it, for your journey has just begun. Now, this makes sense because this month is a month where I often find myself being more introspective, turning in. It's relevant. And then, of course, we have a card from the Nameless One. Now, what I did for my full moons is whereas for my monthly card, I pulled from the tarot portion of the deck. If you don't know this about the Nameless One, there's also a quite substantial, hold on, if I don't throw it at myself. There's also quite a substantial chunk of cards. Like this is what's left. I haven't pulled all my moon cards out. There's quite a substantial chunk of oracle cards as well in the Nameless One. Now these were trickier for me to work with because of course they do not have symbols or things on them where I'm like, oh, this is definitely the 10 of Swords or whatever. But in this case, it looks like, I believe it was literally called the Crow card, but they are in the small guidebook and the big guidebook. And there it is. So this is the Spirit of Joyous Liberation. And it is referenced, there's a crow here. So the affirmation is, I am joyous and free. In upright, it says, an air of joyous relief surrounds you. Your prospects are good. And although your travels may have made you weary, the lessons you learn will make future endeavors lighter to bear. This could not be, oh my gosh, more on point. Again, I'll share more about that in a moment. With obstacles overcome, your path is free and clear. You are what you choose to be, and while you shine with the splendor of the sun, your choices are sure to contain seeds of truth and enlightened wisdom. Your good decisions will soon yield great dividends. What's wonderful about that is that I spent most of this year doing a lot of big things for the first time. In 2024, I wrote finished. I'd already been working on it for a bit, but I finished editing and we published my book through Llewellyn called Unlocking the Tarot, which if you don't know, because I should actually talk about my own stuff sometimes, Unlocking the Tarot is out now. Very, very exciting. This is my first traditionally published book, but my second full book that I've written and published. The first one was self-published, but writing for a publisher, it was first time, it was very scary, and it was incredible. It was an incredible experience, but it was a lot of firsts. Publishing my first deck, the Unicorn's Journey Tarot, hello, and actually then a second deck with Peggy, the Sassy Dragons Tarot. And all of these things involved learning things for the first time, like doing things for the first time, and that made them really hard and really stressful. And there were times in the year where I was like, oh my God, what have I actually gotten myself into? This is horrible. I never want to do this again. Like there were points like that for sure. And I would be lying if I said there wasn't. But now that I'm in December and I've been through these experiences and I now kind of know the lay of the land, I do feel like that. I do feel like even though there's been trials and tribulations in my travels this year, like when I think about this card and this energy, I'm now free and clear because I don't have to ever do those things for the first time ever again. There it is. Okay. So this one is associated with crows and other winged animals and horses. But then when you get in here, you have an entire section on crows and then a section on sunflowers, which of course are the two main things. And then our colors, which were, where is it? Yellow, orange, red, pink, and gold. But when you get into the information about crows, it talks about the crow embodying freedom and why and how and like why we read this differently when we read it upright versus reversed and like just all this beautiful information. So this was also fun to dig into the grimoire. I didn't always, but I often did. I will say if you are thinking about this deck and this just is so out of reach because this grimoire is, she's pricey, she's worth it. She's very high quality. But if you're on the fence about this, I do think this is a beautiful purchase, but you get so much wonderful information. You do not need the big grimoire to read effectively with this deck. And it is such a beautiful, wonderful deck that if this is your barrier, don't let it be. I don't even 100% know if grimoires are still in stock, but I think you can still get them. In any case, regardless, just the book that comes in the deck is, I mean, like, this is not chump change. This is such a good substantive guidebook. You will not be disappointed with this. You will get enough for sure to work with this deck in a meaningful way. Just so it's said, I think sometimes, you know I can be extra and like want all the things, but like that doesn't mean you need all the things. Anyway, to recap, working with the Oracle cards for the full moon, the Goddess card, and the full moon card, this was just beautiful. I loved this. It had a different vibe than my monthly reading, but it still gave me what I needed, but was more digestible in a way. There was like less to pick apart and kind of dig into, and it felt more nurturing, maybe is a good word. So yeah, really, really enjoyed the full moon readings as well. So let me pack all this up and then I'm going to talk through and show you actually what I'm doing for 28-25. Okay, so some final thoughts. I absolutely love and obsessed with the Goddess on Earth Oracle. This is a really beautiful Goddess deck. It gives me everything I need in a Goddess deck. Really happy, enjoyed this all year. I think if anything is going to show you if you really love a deck or not, it's going to be this practice for sure. Absolutely obsessed with the Nameless One. This was so powerful and such a wonderful way to work with cards. It definitely slows me down. Love this deck. The Witching Hour Oracle, while it was fun, it didn't feel like it offered a lot in the way of depth. It was validating and it worked well for this specific practice. I'm glad I tried it. I don't ultimately know if this deck is going to stay in my collection because I don't see a lot of use cases for it for me personally outside of the way that I used it. So this one may be going, but it was still really great for the year that I used it. So I'm not going to feel bad about letting this go and helping it find a new home. But I think that's going to be going in the rehome pile just as a bit of an update. Otherwise, all the other decks I worked with, I had an amazing time, no complaints. And again, I enjoyed all of these. That one I'm just not sure about its long-term sort of viability for me personally. So the only thing I would say as far as like when we're talking about like successes and regrets and that sort of thing, the one thing I really ultimately regretted was the non-sustainability of the way that I did this. So I bought a pack of envelopes. I did use every single one. And obviously these, essentially I use them all year long. But number one, because I dated them with a month and a year, I can't really reuse them. And also because I sealed them with wax, which was a fun and meditative practice, which I really enjoyed. But these envelopes do tear quite easily with the wax. So I can't reuse these envelopes. They're dated. And yeah, the paper just feels antique and lovely though. So I got a new pack of these and I'm so excited to use them again. Now I will link these down below. I did get these on Amazon, but you do get I think you get 12 plus 13, 25 envelopes, which works out perfect because there are 12 months in the year and there are 12 or 13 full moons in the year, depending on the year. So this year there's only 12 full moons. I've already looked that up. So I will have one extra envelope, which I can use it for something else. I'm going to set it aside though in case I end up needing it for a 13th full moon in a future year, because this year I'm not going to wax seal anything and I'm going to write the months and the moons on the envelopes, but without a year, and I'm going to keep them unsealed. I trust myself not to peak, so I'm not too worried about it. But then I can ideally just reuse the same set of envelopes year on year, which to me feels much less wasteful. So that's the first thing that I'm going to do differently. So now let me just separate these out. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there's our moons and there's our months. So I've got a pile of 12 for the months and a pile of 13, well, technically there's 13 for the moons. Okay. I'm only going to need to use 12 and 12. I decided to approach 2025 a little bit differently because while I loved the way that I did it this year, I wanted to have it feel a little bit less study and more working with decks that I know really well, that I'm really comfortable with, but that offer me something unique for the year. So here's what I've landed on. I'm going to be doing a light and shadow reading for each month. And for that, I have chosen my first edition Mons Tarot. Now, this is an easy deck for me to get into and use for this practice because I know for a fact that I have other Mons Tarots. I have 3 versions of this deck. I have my first edition, my trimmed second edition, and my travel edition. So my first edition, which is my precious just for me deck, is going to be the one that I use for this practice. So I'm going to just pull the deck out here and put its little crystal away. So I'm going to be using the Mons Tarot. And then I'm going to be using the Deviant Moon. This is another deck that I absolutely cherish, love working with, and know really, really well. So I don't have another copy of the Deviant Moon yet, but I do have one coming to me. It's currently en route, and it is the mini. Now, something to consider too is if you're somebody like me who tends to have a full size and a mini of a deck, picking one, either the mini or the full size to use for your envelopes is a great way. But look at these backs. For a light and shadow reading, isn't this perfect? So what I've decided I think that I'm going to do, I'm just going to lay it out on the table and see what I think, is I'm going to do a 3 cards reading where there are 3 cards to represent the light and 3 cards to represent the shadow. So I'm going to read these in combination, right? So we have the Chariot as the light and the 5 of Swords as the shadow in this part of the reading. 10 of Swords, and I'm trying to decide, do I want 3 or do I just want 1 of each? I may just want 1 of each. I'm looking at it on the table going, is this going to be too much? And I think it might be, but let me get the rest of what I'm thinking of on the table at the same time. So then I'm going to pull my Little Monsters Lenormand, and this is going to be my 3-card Lenormand reading. I don't tend to use this one a lot. I love Little Monsters artwork, but it's not my go-to for Lenormand readings, and it's just fun to have a way to use it. So I will have my 3-card monsters for my Lenormand. Oh, I love this. Okay. I like that. And then I'm going to pull in, and I'm trying to decide between 2. Okay, this is my dilemma. I'm thinking of either a word of the month with the Diviner Definitions deck. So this deck has a word. I think I like this actually for this. So Diviner Definitions has a word. Mine's still, this copy is still in order, I think. Or I was thinking of pulling a Heart Align card into my envelope. Or excuse me, a Line Heart Oracle, Affirmation Oracle. I really like this too. But this can feel, no, okay. So here's my issue. The Align Heart is like, this is like my Linus Blanket deck. If I go through something really difficult, this is the deck I want to carry around and like pull a card as I need it for when I'm going through a tough time. I don't want this to be unavailable. But I do like the idea of a sort of theme or energy for the month. And I think that the Diviner Definition is going to be really good for that. So the way that these cards are basically laid out is you have the word, and then you have like a series of different meanings based on the word. So question, an interrogative expression often used to test knowledge, a subject or aspect in dispute, an act or instance of asking, room for doubt or objection, and subject to analysis examined. So it's literally like definitions that you can use like an oracle, basically. It's kind of like having a dictionary oracle. I need to shuffle the heck out of this though, because this copy is not shuffled. So I think this will work better on the table. So here's what I'm thinking. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking that I actually want to have there be just 1. Isn't it interesting how so many of the cards I pulled were like difficult cards? Anyways, so this is an interesting juxtaposition, right? This is my light and shadow, and yet the 10 of Swords represents the positive or the light, and the Fool represents the shadow. How interesting. Like maybe like don't deny, like he's looking back at this, like don't deny. I think I like this better. I think I like a single card from each, my 3-card Lenormand, and then my word of the month. So in this case, it would be purpose, and I would have book, clouds, and fox as my 3-card reading. This feels right to me. This feels more honed in. Okay, I think that's the thing. So I'm going to have 1 Diviner Definitions, 1 each from Mons Tarot and Deviant Moon, and then 3 each from the Lenormand. So that is going to be my monthly reading. So then, well, let me just do this, and let me start here. I'm going to do my months, and then we'll go from there. So let me just start out by shuffling the heck out of Diviner Definitions. Okay. Pull that there. And now I'm going to shuffle Lenormand, Little Monsters Lenormand. Okay. And I'm going to shuffle my Mons Tarot and my Deviant Moon. Okay. All these piles are in order and ready to be dealt out onto my envelopes. So I'm just going to write the months on them real quick. And then we'll stuff them. Do I know how to do cursive B to R? I don't know. Okay. I'm also going to quickly write on my full moons. I'm going to just draw a circle. January full moon. The circle is just so I don't accidentally grab the wrong envelope. Okay. So in this order, I'm going to pull like this for each month. So I'm going to fill January, 1, 2, 3, and then the top 3 Lenormand cards in order like that. Only, I just realized, let's see, I need to build this backwards. So like that, so that when I pull them out, they come out in order. So when I pull them out of the envelope, I want to be able to take my little pile of 3 Lenormand cards and flip 1, 2, 3, so that I have it in order. Then my Oracle card, then my Light and Shadows. So that's my January. I'm going to do like that for the rest of the year. Okay. Now, if like me, you are going to forget that you've pulled cards out of your tarot decks, the Lenormand's easy, it's empty, right? What I like to do is take the decks that I'm using for this and put them on a shelf in my room so I know that these are put aside and they're separate. I won't forget. However, when it comes to the Diviner definitions, this deck has like 100, I think, cards in it or something ridiculous. This deck is still perfectly usable with 12 cards missing, so this is going to hang back on my rack like usual. It'll just be missing 12 cards, not the end of the world. So this is going to continue to stay in rotation for the year. And that is something to think about for your Oracle deck. If you have a big enough Oracle deck you're drawing cards from, or if it doesn't really matter if it's missing some cards, you can continue to use it throughout the year. Now, these are ready to go and set aside. They're just not sealed. And now that there's no year, I can reuse these envelopes every year until they basically wear out. But these are ready to go. Now, let's talk about what I'm doing for my full moons, because I am doing something a little bit different. So what I've decided to do for my full moon, now I will say, one nice thing about the fact that I have not sealed these is I forgot an entire thing I was going to include in my month. So yes, I have my word, I have my light and my shadow tarot card, I have my 3 Lenormand cards, but I forgot there was one more thing I was going to add into my year. So let me grab that real quick before I get onto the full moons. I was going to, because it's a light and shadow theme, pull a card from the Wisdom of the Divine Feminine and the Wisdom of the Shadow to work with throughout the year in each month. Wisdom of the Divine Feminine and Wisdom of the Shadow. So I'm going to quickly shuffle these up, and then I'm going to add 1 pair into every envelope. All right, give me one moment to do that, and then I'll be ready to move on to full moons. Okay, that's done. The reason I was gutted when I realized I forgot is because one of the reasons I love this so much is because these cards work really beautifully in combination. So voice and ripeness. Voice is from, I flipped them, but voice is from the shadow, and ripeness is from the Divine Feminine, dependency and beauty. I find these really, really great to work with, and I wanted to have, this was actually part of my inspiration in the first place for doing a shadow and light combined theme for 2025. So I just think this is great. It gives me a way to sort of work with the energies that I really want to work with. So all of this stuff is going to, again, sit on that shelf so that I know, and also so I can refer to the guidebooks. I'm not going to worry about the guidebook for the Diviner definitions. Probably not going to worry too much about the Mons Tarot guidebook. I may refer to the Deviant Moon guidebook, and I'm definitely going to refer to the Wisdom of the Divine Feminine and Shadow guidebooks. But anyway, so my months are ready to go. Oh, they ended up, because I just added the new cards. They're a little bit out of order, so I'm going to restack them in their proper order. So the other benefit to these not being sealed is that if I get a couple months in and I realize the combination of decks I'm using really isn't working, I could, in theory, revamp it. But I'm going to try to not do that because I really liked the idea that I was stuck and committed for the entire year without being able to change it because they were sealed. And I'd like to stick with the spirit of the exercise. Now for my moons, here's what I've decided to do. I think of my moons as a way to engage more with my spiritual practice. And this year's looking a little different. So here's what I've decided to do. For my moons, I'm going to have 1 card each from the Mysteries of Mary deck, which I do need to shuffle really, really well, and from my Mysteries of the Black Madonna deck. And these are going to be the foundation of the reading because I want to get to know these decks and spending an entire year just kind of digging into each one. These are slightly different physical size. I don't know why, but I thought they were the exact same size, but they're not. The Black Madonna's a little smaller. Well, that's good to know. So I need to shuffle the heck out of these. There's going to be one of each. So you see, I'm still sticking with this kind of light and shadow theme, even on my full moons. And then I'm also going to have a tarot card for my full moon from the, is it called the Old Ways Tarot? I think so. What I like about this, I've talked about this before. I use my unicorn deck for this in my bedtime reading, but I like to have a deck that shows me how spirit is showing up for me. And I see that a lot in this deck. We have like angels or divine figures that will often show up in the cards and they feel like they're offering support. This deck feels more like that to me, more spiritual in its vibe. And I thought this would work really nicely with these two decks. So I'm going to be pulling, oh, my candle's almost done. I'm going to be pulling one card only from this. And reading from the book, The Contemplative Tarot. This has been something I've been exploring and really enjoying lately. It is a Christian guide to the cards. It's been an interesting take for me to explore spiritually. I've been doing some work around this, as some of you know, and I've been really enjoying this book. It not only does it have really beautiful write-ups, but it also has some lovely reflections in the back, and it has just as meaty of entries for the minor arcana as for the majors, and this pairs really well with this deck, and I've been using these two together quite a bit. So I thought this book, reading those entries, working with the guidebooks for both of these decks, will make these three work beautifully together on my table for my full moon reading. So this is my plan for right now. So I'm going to shuffle the heck out of all of these and load up my envelopes and be right back. Okay, so all of my moons are ready. All of my months are ready. And any of the associated books, etc., are going to be up on the shelf with these. So each month I can pull. So January, I just pull it whenever in the month I want to pull it. And the full moon, I'm going to pull whenever. Now I do have these little not pull whenever, I'm going to pull during the full moon. I have these little round stickies, and what I'm going to do a little bit later is I'm going to write the date of the full moon on here and just stick it on each envelope, because if the date's already on there, I will know when to open the envelope, but I'm lazy and I know that if the date's not on there, I might miss it. So I'm going to do that later on my own time. But this is how I've got it set up. Again, nothing is sealed. I'm ready to go. I feel like I've got my spiritual practice sort of honed in here. And I feel like here I have that light and shadow sort of themed monthly reading really honed in, including a word of the month to focus on and a 3-card Lenormand. These feel like they're going to be good, substantial, meaty readings for me to sit with every single month. And I'm really looking forward to engaging with this practice again in 2025. As always, if you have any questions about any of this, or if you're curious, I would love to hear from you if you have questions, but I'd also love to hear down below. Are you doing this or a version of this in the upcoming year? And if so, what decks did you pick? Did you pick a theme like I did, or did you do something more open like I did the first year? Let us know, and let's inspire each other in the comments. As always, thank you for watching, and an extra big thank you and lots of love goes out to my Unicorn Fam channel members. Thank you so much for your support of my work. Until next time, may your magic always shine from the inside out. Bye.